Chapter 135, Lappins. Dalton, Usopp, and Vivi are rushing to the town where Dr. Kureha was to apparently ask her to go back to her home, I guess her castle, so she'll be there when Luffy, Nami, Sanji get there. Then we go back to Luffy and Sanji, who are fighting the Lappins, namesakes of the chapter, the giant rabbit polar bear things. Luffy's having to be very careful because he's got Nami on his back. Sanji's doing most of the work here, minus a little moment. And they're running from the Lappins. Meanwhile, Wapol shows back up. They notice the Luffy's ship, the Straw Hat ship, and they go trying to follow their tracks, go looking for them. Well, you meet a couple characters. I don't remember. I guess they didn't get introduced before, but it's Wapol's like lieutenants, basically, Chess and Kuromarimo, former Drum Kingdom Evil Chief of Staff and former Drum Kingdom Evil Magistrate. You meet them, and they notice footprints in a certain direction. Towards Bighorn, I believe the town they were in, and that's where they start heading. Dalton and Usopp and Vivi, I believe, show up, and Cocoa Weed, I think is the name of the town, and the doctor has already moved on. They find out where she went, and then as they do that, the one remaining guard, because the rest got killed when Wapol showed up, and he shows up and lets Dalton know that Wapol's back and he's headed for Bighorn. So that sidetracks Dalton and he starts heading towards Bighorn, and that's the end of the chapter. Chapter 136, A Man Named Dalton, or Holy Crap, Dalton is Awesome. Luffy and Sanji are witnessing the Lappins, the polar bear rabbits doing something. They're not totally sure what they're doing, but they seem to have a realization. And then we don't find out what that is for now. From there, we basically see, I think this is Dalton rallying the troops, so to speak, but trying to get everybody to go to Bighorn to stand and defend their country against Wapol, who has returned, right? We're back to Usopp and Vivi, who are trying to find their way to the town Gyasta, where the witch Kureha, or whatever, is supposed to be. But they are unsure of where they're going now that they don't have Dalton sort of leading the way. And they're looking for a sign, and it looks like they missed the sign from here. That's not good. We go to Wapol, who's up to his normal, like, eating everything, and he prefers his house is cooked well done. Pretty much everyone around him, except his, like, two lieutenants, don't seem to like him very much. Including the, I guess, hippo he's riding. They apparently catch wind somehow of Luffy, or the Straw Hats in general, but it's really Luffy and Sanji and Nami heading for Drum Castle. We find out that Dr. Kureha was some kind of a traitor in Wapol's eyes and is now living in his castle. So he's not happy about that. Right as he's getting upset about that, Dalton shows up, knocks him down, slashes him even, I think. Or at least Wapol says, he slashed me, I'm going to die. So, while we find out about the doctors, I guess this island was renowned for its medical knowledge. Wapol, when he was king, took all the doctors to him in the castle and got rid of the rest. So, he basically kept his power by keeping medical care in his control and whether or not he let anyone have access to it, basically. So, that's great. Yeah, Wapol's a real great person, obviously. We also find out that Dalton was the third of the lieutenants, basically. So, and the leader of, I guess, his forces, Wapol's forces. Yeah, he was the commander of the Drum Kingdom militia. Dalton is set to get rid of Walpole. He reveals that he has the ox fruit, and he basically turns into a giant bull/ox, a very powerful, strong beast, and he demonstrates some of his power, and it's pretty over the top and ridiculous. But apparently he's got some kind of a weakness. I don't see any name for these weaknesses, but they're arrows. Basically, they're thick, very large arrows. They look almost like, they're darts, but they look like swords almost, or just like spears, basically, being shot like arrows. So that seems to take him out. And in that moment, they start to hear like an earthquake or feel an earthquake. And that's when our attention goes back to, first off, Usopp and Vivi, who also start to feel the earthquake. And then we go back and we see Luffy and Sanji and Nami noticing the Lapins conjuring up an avalanche is what it looks like. Yeah, and they do say avalanche, and that's the end of the chapter. Chapter 137, Avalanche. That's what I would call this chapter, definitely. So the avalanche is basically threatening everybody more or less simultaneously, and everybody is trying to get out of its way wherever they happen to be, because they're all in its path. Luffy and Sanji are first in the path. Sanji's very upset about the rabbits and what they've done. Of course, he's prioritizing Nami, so he tries to figure out where Luffy can go to be safe, and they both go to a ledge, which isn't quite high enough. And of course, even though they make it to the ledge, it's not quite high enough, so they get caught up in the avalanche. And in order not to get buried, Luffy jumps on a tree, grabs Sanji's hand, and they ride the tree, ride the avalanche on a tree down the mountain, which is ridiculous. Sanji says as much. He also says, "Darn those blasted hoppity hops. Next time I see them, they're stew." Well, immediately in the next panel, they see some that are also there. I can't quite tell what they're doing. They're like barefoot skiing on top of the avalanche or something. It's kind of what it looks like. And everyone's just trying to survive. And they're trying to basically find a way to not kill Nami, who's on Luffy's back, and get buried and all of that, not die, whatever. So Sanji finds a way to... it's hard to tell what happens exactly. He basically sacrifices himself to make sure Nami's okay, and by proxy, Luffy. Luffy tries to save him, but only, reaches out to grab him with his arm and comes back with his glove, and Sanji's buried, apparently. So from there, we move to the village where Walpole and company are, and they are running for it, and we find out the hippo, the woolly hippo that Walpole's riding, Robson, can stand up. And basically they don't generally stand up, but they can stand up, and it helps them move through the snow and move very quickly. And they call it, at least in the translation here, serious mode. Other people want to ride with him, and he doesn't really let them, other than it looks like his two lieutenants. We also see Usopp and Vivi running. It's not clear to me where they are in all of this, because I think they're out in the wilderness. Just see a clip of them running, so it hasn't caught them yet. Then we go back to Luffy, where the avalanche is already sort of passed, and making sure Nami's okay, and then he dives off into the snow, it looks like, probably to go find Sanji. From there, we see that it looks like Walpole and company basically get avalanched on anyway. The whole village is covered. Yeah. Walpole makes it, though. He looks like maybe he eats his way out or something. Yeah. That is what they're showing, right? And then spits out the bite he took out of the snow. And then decides that it's the Straw Hats who obviously intentionally did this to get them back for attacking them back on the water, which seems like a million years ago right now. So they're going to go after them, go up the mountain looking for them, which basically means looking for Luffy, pretty much. Back up the mountain, we see Luffy is now carrying it looks like Sanji and Nami. And he kind of he sees one of the Lopins. It looks like a baby Lopin trying to get its parent unburied, and it can't. So Luffy just unburies the larger one, and the Lopins kind of look at them with a ... So that's probably going to end the conflict, I would guess. You see Luffy carrying both Sanji and Nami now, and we also hear the sound of Walpole riding up on them, and that's the end of the chapter. So far, because of the way I've done these past couple videos, I think also the story's a little bit more. There's more storylines going at once because people separate a little bit. It's fun to get into this a little bit deeper and have things not move quite as fast, even though things are moving quickly. It's just separately, so everything individually seems like it's moving a little slower. Chapter 138, The Summit. Appropriate name. So Walpole's caught up with Luffy, Nami, Sanji, and basically Luffy just tells him to get out of his way because he's focused on what he's doing, and Walpole decides to make a new law. Those who ignore me die, and wants to start with two that ignored him the most, the sick one and the wounded one. Nice guy. Luffy makes a run for it, knowing that if he tries to fight, that Nami and Sanji will be at risk. They catch up with him, but because Luffy bothered to save the Lopins intervene and start fighting Walpole and company, which gives Luffy a chance to escape. Luffy then makes it to the base of the giant drum tower thing where the castle's on top of, and he begins climbing, and apparently it takes him over 3 hours to get to the top. He drops Sanji along the way, but is able to, stretch his arm down and grab him and save him. And right as he makes it to the top, he sees the castle, which really looks well. The drawing is great of that. And he basically collapses, though, on the top. And then as he does that, the edge of the drum starts falling. We go back to Walpole, who just finished. I guess it took him over 3 hours to take out the giant rabbits. Then we go back to Luffy as he's about to fall. Some mysterious figure who looks furry, we'll say, saves him. And that's the end of the chapter. As I record this, it is nearly Christmas, just a few days away, and what better way to celebrate Christmas than with a reindeer by the name of Tony Chopper. Chapter 139, Enter Tony Chopper. We come back to Vivi and Usopp, who I was wondering about, and they got hit by the avalanche, but they're alive. And Vivi is basically dragging Usopp, who is trying to die on her. She slaps the crap out of him. He wakes up, doesn't realize what happened. His face is swollen. She tells him that he has frostbite, and they just move on. Yeah. Is something wrong with Vivi? Is she okay? I mean, I know Usopp. There's something wrong with Usopp, but Vivi I wasn't sure about. Then Zoro comes back. I guess he finished his swim and got out on the wrong side of the river or lake or wherever he was swimming after he chased a fish, and he's out here without a shirt on. Usopp won't give him his shirt because he, brought it upon himself for being crazy and swimming in this wintry island paradise. Anyway, they make it back to the village, which is covered in snow. I guess Dalton is buried, and the remaining guards won't let anyone unbury him because they're not loyal to him. They basically challenge anybody to, if they want to unbury him, to fight them. So Zolo takes that challenge up, beats the crap out of one of them, takes his coat, and wears it so he won't be as cold, at least, anymore. Presumably that fight continues, but we move on to the castle where the doctor has actually returned there, and apparently she has already basically saved Nami, or is in the process of it, but Nami's doing much better. And Sanji and Luffy are also doing okay. And this is where we meet Tony Chopper, who is basically assisting. I mean, we met him before in a previous chapter, but we didn't get much of him. Now we really get at least more of him, and we find out what exactly he is, which is a blue-nosed reindeer that ate the human fruit, and that's why he can talk and do things humans can do, and also can fight. And it's probably the furry thing that saved Luffy in the first place, I'm guessing, if I go back and look, in his more large, quote-unquote, human form. So Nami's doing okay. She tries to get up and leave early, but the doctor won't have it. She's going to make her take the whole treatment. Apparently she'd been bitten by something on the jungle island, in the prehistoric jungle island that I can't think of the name of right now. And that had supposedly should have been extinct, but was still existent on that island, and gave her this infection that was about to kill her. But now, according to the doctor, she has been saved. I like the doctor. I'm assuming she's just very intense, but we'll see if there's more to it. Sanji and Luffy try to capture Tony Chopper to eat him because he's meat. They get into an altercation. That's when you find out about Tony Chopper's abilities. That's basically the end of the chapter, and that's the end of this section, this part as well. So for the next part, it'll be here when it's ready, and until then it'll just be probably the playlist or another video in this list until it's done, but it's coming. So thanks for watching. Like and subscribe. Keep watching more videos if you are so inclined. Have a Merry Christmas if you're watching it upon release. Thanks.